We all know someone who can be a bit too self-absorbed, but there is a line where everyday selfishness hardens into a relationship-destroying pathology. To find that line, psychiatrists rely on the DSM-5. It defines Narcissistic Personality Disorder as an enduring pattern of grandiosity and a lack of empathy that typically sets in during early adulthood. This diagnostic framework doesn't rely on guesswork. It maps the disorder across 9 specific behavioral criteria. A formal diagnosis is triggered when a patient consistently exhibits at least 5 of these distinct traits across different areas of their life. Reading these criteria on a page is one thing. Sitting across the table from someone who embodies them is entirely different. NPD represents a systemic failure in how a person processes human interaction, operating on a different plane than high self-esteem or mere confidence. The cycle begins internally. Before anyone else is involved, the narcissist's mind constructs a very specific, isolated reality. The first 2 clinical traits define this internal world: a grandiose sense of self-importance, fueled by a constant preoccupation with fantasies of boundless success, power, or ideal love. This feeds into the third trait, a deep-seated belief that they are entirely unique. They convince themselves they can only be understood by, or should only associate with, other high-status individuals and institutions. These internal delusions cannot stay contained forever. They inevitably bleed outward, shaping the way this person interacts with everyone else. This is the external demand. The 4th and 5th criteria manifest as a requirement for excessive, constant admiration, paired with a completely unreasonable sense of entitlement to favorable treatment. The internal setup demands an external payoff. The individual moves through life expecting the world around them to automatically comply with their imagined superiority. When the world inevitably fails to meet these extreme demands, the cycle moves to its 3rd and most destructive phase, the relational fallout. This is where we see the 6th criterion, interpersonally exploitative behavior. Other human beings cease to be people and instead become mere tools utilized to achieve the narcissist's personal goals. The psychological mechanism allowing this is a severe empathy deficit. They simply cannot or will not recognize or identify with the feelings and needs of others. The diagnostic picture is completed by the final 2 traits, a pervasive envy of others, or the steadfast belief that others envy them, coupled with distinctly arrogant and haughty behaviors. When peers push back or refuse to comply with their demands, these traits serve as defensive walls. The arrogance shields their fragile, grandiose narrative from reality. Without the friction of empathy, manipulation becomes effortless. What should be a mutual human relationship is reduced to a purely one-sided, parasitic transaction. These 9 clinical criteria map a repetitive cycle of internal setup, external demand, and relational fallout. This exploitation rarely looks like a dramatic plot. Most often, it manifests quietly in the everyday. Consistently ignored personal boundaries, and repeatedly dismissed feelings. Any healthy relationship requires empathy to function as the psychological glue. Without it, connections shatter. Because that essential glue is clinically absent, achieving true mutual intimacy with an individual suffering from this disorder is practically impossible. Once you recognize this specific clinical triad, the grandiosity, the entitlement, and the void of empathy, you can identify these behavioral red flags as they happen in real time. Understanding these foundations gives you the clarity you need. It is your best defense for protecting your own emotional boundaries from those who view other people merely as stepping stones.